Priya's eyes shot up from the invitation, confusion swirling in her mind. Rakesh, she stammered, not fully grasping the situation. No, not Rakesh, Anju said with a smile that could cut steel. I'm getting married to someone else. Priya's heart dropped. She looked at the name beside Anju's on the invitation, and her world shattered. Amit. The name escaped her lips like a curse, her voice barely audible. Amit. Her Amit. Her husband no, her ex-husband was marrying Anju. You think you've won, don't you? Priya spat, her voice trembling. You think this is over? Anju raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Oh, Priya, it's already over. You lost the moment you tried to destroy me. Please. If you haven't already, kindly subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories like this one. Now, let's get straight into the video. Anju's footsteps echoed through the narrow street as she walked toward the seamstress shop. It was finally here. Her wedding day was only a week away. The dress, the symbol of a new beginning, waited for her. The bright white gown would erase the stains of her past. Or so she hoped. She quickened her pace, excitement bubbling inside her. She had imagined walking down the aisle countless times, with Rakesh's eyes filled with love. She never thought she would find someone like him, a man who loved her despite everything. The village seemed quieter today. The usual busy roads were oddly empty, but Anju didn't think much of it. Her mind was on the gown and the future ahead. Until she heard a car screeching behind her. Before she could turn, a van pulled up beside her, and two men jumped out, faces hidden under dark masks. Panic surged as they grabbed her, silencing her screams with a cloth over her mouth. The world blurred as she was dragged into the van, thrashing in a futile attempt to escape. When she awoke, her wrists were bound, and the cold floor beneath her was damp. Her eyes fluttered open, squinting at the dim light flickering from a single bulb above. Her body ached, her mind trying to process what had happened. The door creaked open, and Anju's breath caught. Priya stood in the doorway, her expression triumphant. Rakesh's sister, who had always looked at her with contempt, now stood over her like a predator. You didn't think I'd let this wedding happen, did you? Priya's voice was sharp. Anju's heart pounded. Priya, why? What's happening? Let me go. Priya stepped closer. You really think you deserve to marry my brother? After everything you've done? After what you are? Anju's breath came in short gasps. She knew Priya disapproved, but this was beyond anything she imagined. I've changed, Anju whispered. I love Rakesh. Changed? Priya scoffed. A woman like you can never change. You've slept with every man in this village for money. You're a disgrace. My brother deserves better. Anju trembled but forced herself to stay calm. Priya thought she held all the cards, but Anju knew things too. Secrets Priya didn't think anyone knew. But now wasn't the time. You will leave Rakesh, Priya said, her voice low. Leave this village, and never show your face again, or I'll make sure everyone knows who you really are. Anju's heart raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had survived worse than this. Priya's threats might sting, but Anju was no stranger to hardship. It wasn't the first time she had felt trapped, cornered by the mistakes of her past. Her mind drifted back to the days that had shaped her into who she had become, the girl who sold herself for survival. Her childhood had been filled with hardship. Her father had left when she was young, disappearing into the city and never coming back. Her mother, too weak to work and too proud to beg, had slowly withered away, leaving Anju to fend for herself. The village had offered no help, just whispers and judgment as she grew up poor, hungry, and desperate. The men in the village had always looked at her a certain way. At first, it was just looks, lingering glances from the older men as she passed them by. But then the offers began, first in whispers, then with money in hand. Anju had resisted at first, disgusted by the thought. But hunger had a way of making people do things they swore they never would. One night, the choice was no longer a choice. Her mother had been too sick to even get out of bed. Anju had stared at the handful of rupees she had left, knowing it wouldn't be enough for food or medicine. And then there was a knock at the door. It was a man from the village, one of the wealthier ones. He had always been kind to her, offering her small jobs to help out when she needed it. But that night, his kindness came with a price. He had stepped into the house, his eyes sweeping over her as he made the offer. It was more money than she had ever seen in her life. He proposed to sleep with her in exchange for a large sum of money. Anju had stood there, frozen. She had known what it meant, what she would have to do. But the memory of her mother's weak, frail body in the other room had pushed her forward. She had taken the money, and with it, her first step down a path she could never turn back from. From then on, it had only gotten worse. Word had spread through the village, and more men came with their offers. She had learned to shut down her emotions, to detach herself from what was happening. It wasn't about pleasure or desire, it was about survival. Each man had been just another transaction, another way to make it through another day. And now, here she was, trying to escape that life, trying to build something new with Rakesh, a man who loved her for who she was, not what she had done. But Priya, with her sharp tongue and judgmental eyes, was determined to drag her back into that darkness. Anju knew she couldn't let Priya win. She couldn't let her past destroy her future. But how could she fight someone like Priya, who held all the power? Anju was released the third day by Priya with bruises on her body. Anju's mind began to work. She had secrets too, things Priya didn't know she knew. If Priya thought she could hold her past over her, Anju could just as easily turn the tables and make her feel the pain she was feeling. Anju's resolve hardened. She wouldn't let Priya win. Priya, meanwhile, sat in her lavish home, swirling a glass of wine. To the village, she had it all, a wealthy husband, a beautiful house, and a spotless reputation. But behind closed doors, her pristine image was cracking. Her marriage was strained, her control over Rakesh slipping. I gave her a chance, Priya muttered. But she refused to leave. It wasn't just about Rakesh anymore. Priya feared that Anju knew too much. If Anju spoke, her own secrets could be exposed about the men she saw behind her husband's back. Priya had to act before it was too late. The night of the engagement party arrived, a celebration of Anju and Rakesh's upcoming marriage. The house was filled with guests, laughter, and conversations. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Priya stood, tapping her glass for attention. "Excuse me, everyone," she began. "I just want to say a few words about my brother's wedding." Anju's heart raced. She knew what Priya was about to do. "Rakesh," Priya continued, "you know I've always wanted what's best for you. So, I feel obligated to share something important about the woman you're about to marry." The room grew quiet. Eyes shifted from Priya to Anju. Rakesh looked confused but attentive. "There are things about Anju's past that no one knows," Priya said. "I think it's only fair the family knows exactly who she is." Before Priya could say more, Anju stepped forward. "You're right, Priya. There are things that need to come to light." Priya blinked, caught off guard. Anju pulled out her phone and played a recording of Priya in a heated and intimate moment with a man who was not her husband. Gasps echoed through the room. Priya paled, stumbling backward. How did you get this?" she stammered. Anju's eyes were cold. "You thought you could dig up dirt on me, but secrets go both ways." Amit, Priya's husband, stood in shock. "Priya, is this true? You've been cheating on me?" I can explain," Priya stuttered, but it was too late. "I want a divorce," Amit said, his voice firm. Priya's world crumbled in an instant. The woman who had tried to destroy Anju now stood in ruins, her marriage shattered, her reputation destroyed. Rakesh had been silent through the whole ordeal, his eyes moving from the damning video to his sister, and then to Anju. He stood in the middle of a storm, unsure where to turn. The weight of family expectations, the sudden revelations, and the whispers of the guests made his head spin. His mother rushed to Priya's side, trying to calm her, but the damage was done. His father simply sat in shock, unable to believe what had unfolded. Rakesh took a step toward Anju, his face filled with confusion and pain. Anju, why didn't you tell me any of this? About my sister, about everything? Anju's heart broke at the sight of him, but she held her ground. I didn't want to hurt you, Rakesh. I was going to tell you everything, but not like this. His brows furrowed, his mind racing to keep up. But why didn't you just come clean? About yourself, about what Priya was doing? Anju sighed. Because I was scared. Scared that you wouldn't see past my mistakes, scared that you would leave me. Rakesh's gaze hardened, the weight of the evening pressing down on him. His parents stood beside Priya, who was still sobbing quietly, but his mother's eyes turned to Anju, filled with disappointment. Rakesh, his mother said softly, is this really the kind of woman you want to marry? The pressure was too much. Rakesh had spent years trying to live up to his family's expectations, and now, he found himself trapped between the woman he loved and the family that was tearing itself apart. I need time to think, Rakesh muttered, stepping back from Anju. Time to think. Anju's voice cracked. You're breaking up with me because of her lies. I'm not breaking up with you, Rakesh said, though his voice faltered. I just need to clear my head. Everything's happening so fast. But Anju could see the truth in his eyes. The pressure from his family was too much. He was backing away, whether he admitted it or not. Rakesh, unable to face Anju or his family, left the gathering, leaving Anju standing alone in the middle of a room that once promised happiness. The whispers of the guests echoed around her, a constant reminder that nothing would ever be the same. Weeks later, Priya's marriage ended in silence. Amit had left her, and Rakesh had distanced himself. Priya's attempts to rebuild her life were futile. She had lost everything because of her own actions. But her hatred for Anju remained, festering like a wound that wouldn't heal. One afternoon, as Priya sat alone, there was a knock at the door. When she opened it, her breath caught. Anju stood there, dressed in a red sari, holding an ornate envelope. Anju, Priya whispered. Anju smiled, handing her the envelope. I've come to deliver something important. Priya opened it, her hands trembling. Inside was a wedding invitation. Please come, Anju said. I'd love to have you there. Priya's eyes scanned the names. It wasn't Rakesh. It was Amit. Anju was marrying Priya's ex-husband. Anju watched Priya's face crumble, enjoying every moment of her misery. Oh, didn't I mention, she said lightly as if discussing the weather. Amit and I have gotten quite close since your little scandal. He needed someone who could offer him peace and understanding. Someone who wouldn't lie and cheat. Priya's body stiffened. Her chest tightened with a mix of rage and disbelief. This couldn't be happening. She had tried to protect her brother from Anju, and now Anju had wormed her way into her life in the worst way possible, stealing her husband. Priya's body stiffened, her chest tightening. You. I warned you, Priya, Anju whispered. You couldn't handle your own dirt, yet you tried to bury me under mine. And now, you've lost everything. You think you've won, don't you? Priya spat, her voice trembling. You think this is over? Anju raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Oh, Priya, it's already over. You lost the moment you tried to destroy me. With that, Anju turned on her heel, her sari swirling behind her like the final stroke in a masterpiece of revenge. She left Priya standing there, frozen in shock, clutching the invitation that mocked everything she had tried to protect. But as Anju walked away, Priya's mind was already calculating. The pain was too deep, the betrayal too raw. She wouldn't just let this go. No, Anju had crossed a line, and Priya vowed she would make her pay. She would bide her time, but one day, she would get her revenge. Priya sat in her once lively home, now filled with an unsettling quiet. The invitation lay open on the table in front of her, its golden letters sparkling under the dim light, a stark contrast to the dark pit growing in her heart. She replayed Anju's words over and over in her mind, each one cutting deeper than the last. How dare she? Priya whispered through clenched teeth, her face contorting with anger. Her once graceful demeanor had crumbled into a raw fury. She stood abruptly, knocking over the chair, and stormed across the room. The walls of her house seemed to close in, suffocating her with the weight of her failures. She grabbed the edge of the table and squeezed until her knuckles turned white. Amit had left her. Rakesh, her junior brother, had abandoned her. And now, Anju was marrying her ex-husband. She had lost everything: her pride, her marriage, her family, all because of that woman. I will destroy you, Anju, Priya hissed to herself. You took everything from me, and now I will take everything from you. Her mind conjured plans, dark and twisted, ways to ruin Anju's life, to take back what was hers. She wouldn't rest until Anju felt the same pain she had felt. A slow, simmering anger took root in her heart, and Priya knew that from this moment forward, there would be no going back. Consumed by rage, Priya couldn't stand the thought of Anju marrying Amit. Desperation had driven her to a place she never thought she'd go. She hired someone who would watch Anju, track her movements, and report back on every step she took. It was only a matter of time now, as she has been waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The message came one evening. Anju was on her way to the temple. Priya grabbed her keys, speeding toward the temple, her mind focused on one thing: ending Anju's life. But in her frenzy, she didn't see the car speeding toward her. The crash was swift and violent. Priya died instantly, her plans for revenge ending in her own destruction. Priya's lifeless body lay motionless on the cold ground, her once burning hatred now extinguished in a flash of fate. She had run out of time. The revenge she had sought so desperately, the plans she had carefully made, ended with her own death. In her madness, she never saw the end coming, not like this. The day of the wedding dawned bright and serene, the temple bells ringing softly in the background. Anju walked down the aisle with Amit by her side, her heart full and at peace. The events of the past months seemed like a distant nightmare, one that no longer had the power to control her. She had faced the worst life could throw at her, and now she stood victorious. As for Priya, she became a cautionary tale in the village. People whispered of her downfall, of how jealousy and hatred had consumed her so deeply that she paid the ultimate price. She had tried to destroy another woman's life, but in the end, it was her own life that was shattered. Don't do to others what you can't take yourself. The pain you inflict may one day return to you. The villagers repeated those words, a warning carried on the wind. Priya had tried to tear down Anju, but it was her own actions that led her to a bitter end. A stark reminder that revenge often harms the one who seeks it more than the one it's aimed at. And so, as Anju and Amit exchanged their vows, the temple witnessed not just the union of two people but the final closing of a chapter haunted by hatred. Peace had finally returned, but the shadows of the past would never fully fade away. Please subscribe to Naga Folktale Spot for more amazing stories like this one. See you soon.